Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my top 15 worst exotics in Destiny 2. And right off the bat, I want to be very clear that this video is mostly made for fun. It's not meant to be personal to anybody who uses these kind of exotics. These are just the exotics that I personally don't use and I don't personally like. However, they're also based on three main factors. The first factor is going to be specific use cases. I'm a firm believer that every single thing in a game has to have a very specific use case, and if there's something else that does what it does better, then there is no point to it. An example of an exotic that's not really that good but has a very good use case is Lunafaction boots. I only ever use them in a Warlock scenario in a DPS phase on a raid and never use it in any other way, but that is the best option for that, and it is something I recommend. The second factor is going to be how good is it at the highest level play. Is it going to help you really a lot in Trials of Osiris? Is it going to help you a lot in Grandmaster Nightfalls? Is it going to help you at really long range against invaders in Gambit? If it's really good at one or multiple of these higher level play stuff, it's going to rank really highly. And the final category is going to be fun. Even though I don't actually incorporate fun into a lot of my spreadsheets, fun is very important when it comes to picking exotics, because there are plenty of times that I pick something because it's fun to use. Something like Insurmountable Skullfort is not a top 10 exotic because it's melee based, but is a lot of fun in mid-level PvE. And the next 15 exotics we'll talk about in this video either have very few or none of these qualities. Alright, so in no particular order, let's go ahead and get started with the Titan exotic armors. First up, we have the Khepri's Horn. Not only does it look disgusting, it does a bunch of stuff that doesn't really have much of an effect. It creates a big solar wave from your class ability thing, and then it comes back to you and technically can kill a guardian from full health, but it's one of those things where people can just walk away from. And if anybody can just walk away if they know what you're doing, then it's not very good. Furthermore, you get your barricade more often, but most of the time I'd rather use that with an exotic that has to do with your class ability. Something like Alpha Lupi. Love to get more class ability, but that's another exotic. And again, Khepri's Horn looks gross. Up next we have the Stronghold. A number of different benefits to your sword that gives you more benefit while you're blocking, but does not give you much benefit for doing damage, which is the main purpose of swords in PvE. Put a bubble or a well on a boss or a champion that's stunned and go to town doing a lot of damage. Furthermore, blocking just doesn't feel that good in this game. Firstly, you have to face the enemies, so if you're running away, you have to fly backwards blocking the enemies, and usually your energy drops very quickly and you're stunned out of your block animation. I think if Bungie wants to make blocking more viable, they have to make it stronger and perhaps maybe even reflect back towards the enemy. After that, we have the Severance Enclosure, an exotic that may actually be someone's favorite out there because it does cause explosions whenever you get a charged melee kill. However, from my experience, first of all, again, you have to get that charged melee kill or finisher in PvE, but by the time you do that, you're also banking on someone else being right next to you, because technically the damage fall off on that is very quick. You have to be right on top of them to actually get a kill entirely with this exotic. And usually you're finishing the last enemy in the room, so that doesn't do much either. After that, for the Warlock exotic, we have the APOTHEOSIS Veil. You get your grenade, your melee, and your class ability whenever you pop your super, so right when you get out of your super, thank God you have your grenade. When have you ever said that? Furthermore, your teammates do get class ability, which is kind of nice, and it has a minimum of like 12 intelligence, but that doesn't change your total stats. Following that, probably one of the worst exotics in the game, we have the SANGUINE ALCHEMY. It pauses your rift's duration whenever you get kills inside said rift. Keep in mind, it does not increase the time of the rift, and it does not work for the well. If it worked for the well, this thing would be better, but still not top tier. Because think to yourself, at what point is staying in the same spot for more than a minute really what you want? And if that is what you want, do Attunement of Grace, put your teammates in these rifts, and continually get it, while also having a much better exotic. Up next after that, our first Hunter exotic, we have the Oathkeepers, an exotic that I have at literally the lowest possible ranking out of all the different armor exotics in the game that technically does violate one of the three factors that I mentioned earlier, because it is technically the only exotic that affects bows. However, the effect that it has for bows is something that I often find that you can just kind of learn in 5 to 10 minutes. And I will admit, it technically does have more use than a lot of these other exotics on the list. In Trials of Osiris, being able to hold the Monarch a lot longer just makes it easier to use, and can mean the difference of getting that first shot. But I still do wish that it did something more. After that, we have the Radiant Dance Machine, an exotic that used to be absolutely broken when it could give you nearly infinite super and infinitely cast the shockwaves of stasis, and it no longer does that. Now I'm kind of wishing this exotic was a mod so I could use it with other dodge-based exotics. Honestly, this literally should just be an artifact mod. Why is it a whole exotic? And in the final exotic armor, we have the Bombardiers, an exotic that did get buffed this season, have a bunch of extra effects to your dodge explosion effect, and the ones we were most excited about was the stasis effect, which technically doesn't count as regular stasis, does not give you regular stasis stacks, it counts as a separate stasis low, and the suppression effect, which does turn off enemy abilities, but does not turn off an enemy's super. For some reason, it's a different set of suppression. My assumption is it has to do with the Void 3.0 coming with Witchwing. Up next, let's start talking about the exotic weapons. First up, we have the Cerberus, an exotic that in patrol feels like an automatic shotgun with primary ammo damage, but the problem is, obviously, that it's very short range, and anything past mid-level, it just feels incredibly weak because you can't get close enough to get all the shots on target. Now, I will admit, in some ways it is fun, but again, anywhere past mid-level, you start to lose fun very quickly. And the Catalyst really confuses me because it's a tighter burst, closer range shot. So you'd rather just use the regular shot for both close and long range. Following that, we have the Polaris Lance, an exotic that came out very early in Destiny 2's cycle that feels more like a legendary weapon. If you've not heard of it, you get ammo back off of getting headshots, kind of like triple tap, and off the 5th one, you get an explosion effect that also causes a burn effect. The problem being is that explosion doesn't really do that much, the burn effect does extremely not that much, and to get the Catalyst down, you have to get kills with, you guessed it, that burn effect. Not the explosion, the burn effect. This exotic, it took forever. Following that, we have another scout rifle. And if you can't tell, I'm not a huge fan of scout rifles and bows. And this particular exotic actually did get changed recently, so the blind fire version has an auto tracking thing, which is kind of fun, but the extended mag makes the reload process really not fun. Furthermore, you can actually shoot through fouling shields, and that's cool, but now we have barrier rounds. And barrier rounds do the same, and they also stun barrier champions, and they also work against, you know, through the shields of those denial vandals. Honestly, I think Bungie could afford to make this weapon inherently barrier rounds, and it still wouldn't be something I'd use, but I think that would be a good start. After that, we have the Prometheus Lens, an exotic that used to do 5 times the damage in the Crucible during the laser tag days. That was a lot of fun. And nowadays, from what I understand about the exotic, is it's supposed to be a fodder killing weapon, because as you shoot, there's this little solar ball that expands at the end of the shot that technically does solar damage to everybody inside of it, but it is so much smaller than the actual damage of the weapon that it's not worth it. I completely forget it's there all the time. So the biggest benefit is you get ammo back into the magazine as you get kills with it, which is like, who cares, just use an auto rifle. Up next, we have the Cryosthesia, an exotic sidearm that came out last season in Season of the Splicer, actually for the season pass, that a lot of people thought was going to be really broken in the Crucible because stasis was really strong. In this particular exotic, after getting a kill with it, you can switch and hold the reload button to a single shot that will freeze a target. That being said, that freeze actually lasts a very short amount of time. Secondly, it's a precision frame archetype of sidearm, which is not really that great, and the enemies can just throw a glacier wall and shatter dive it. So it just feels like the competition between Cryosthesia and shatter diving, Up next, we have the exotic sniper rifle known as Darcy, which is a heavy ammo exotic sniper rifle that actually used to be the #1 DPS in the entire game back in the Whisper of the Worm days, Scourge of the Past. We were actually dumping damage with Darcy, and that's because they buffed it to make it do 4 times the crit damage when you have the enemy in your scope and highlighted with the target adjuster. And even with that, ever since then, with the number of sniper nerfs, which I think that Bungie should reverse, as long as they don't touch Izanagi's ×4 and Cloud Strike, even then, it's less DPS than that of a regular linear fusion rifle, and 1/3 of the amount of total ammo damage. Furthermore, not very many people can handle the 140 RPM fire rate to actually get that level of DPS. And technically, again, it does kind of violate one of the factors from before. There is a use for this exotic. If you want to know damage fall-off numbers, you want to know exactly how far you are from an enemy that the damage starts falling off, this exotic does tell you in the scope, 18 meters, you know, but come on, that's not a regular use case. And finally, the last item on this list is gonna be Salvation's Grip. Initially, it came out in a days when we were just getting stasis and there weren't that many dependable ways of using stasis and getting stasis effects. This could be used in conjunction with, for example, Focusing Lens. That being said, it doesn't do that much damage. The stasis crystals you get from it are not really that significant, and there are so many other ways to get stasis now with the new fragments that do a whole bunch of new different things, like the stasis turrets that can cause stasis, Ager's Scepter, a special ammo weapon, can cause stasis, and it can cause a lot more stasis with its catalyst. There are just so many better and new ways to get stasis that are dependable that we do not need Salvation's Grip. The only use I have for it is to be able to climb up of walls. Just keep sticking stasis onto walls, you create ladders up walls, which sounds kind of fun, but there's so many push barriers, Bungie just doesn't want us to have fun. And please do let me know in the comments down below if you think any of these 15 exotics were vastly underrated, especially if there's a very specific way to use these exotics that is a lot of fun, or a way to use these exotics that may be really good in the future to keep an eye out for. And lastly, again, this was for fun. This is not meant to be personal or to say that anybody who uses any of these weapons or these exotic armors is a bad person or shouldn't be using these. You should use the things that you like. This is just the stuff that I don't like. And of course, videos like this really wouldn't be possible without my patrons on Patreon. Specifically, a big thank you to Mom and Dad, Christian Thompson, Dr. Strange, Kellyanne, Monday, Steve Bachman, Raymond, Shonu, Panther, Casey Ray for their support on Patreon. And that's it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name's Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.